We would like to thank them for the privilege of living on their land and the gift of working with their children. Thanks to everybody who's here tonight on this beautiful spring evening. Moving forward on our agenda, looking for a trustee to move adoption.
The Board of Education of School District Number 71, Comox Valley, adopt the April 28th, 2026 regular board meeting as presented.
Thank you, Christy. And all those in favor? Carrie, thank you very much. Up next is the adoption of the board meeting minutes. Christy?
The Board of Education of School District Number 71, Comox Valley, adopt the March 17th, 2026 regular board meeting minutes as presented.
Seeing no hand raised in discussion, all those in favor? And opposed? And that's carried. Thank you. So a record of 2 in-camera meetings. March 17th, 2026, regular in-camera meeting, and April 14th, 2026, closed committee of the whole meeting. Presentations and delegations. We don't have any at this stage of our meeting tonight, but we will have some our learning services team do some presentations later on in our meeting. And announcement. I've got a couple things to share verbally. My apologies for not having this as a written report. But today is the National Day of Mourning. And for 35 years, Canada has recognized today as a day to honor and acknowledge workers that have lost their lives to occupational disease or have been killed or injured on the job. It's also time to collectively and recognize our shared, and with shared responsibility, recognize the importance of health and safety practices at Comox Valley schools, and again, recognizing that it is a shared responsibility. Next week, on May 5th, is the National Day of Remembrance and Awareness, also known as Red Dress Day. On this day, we raise awareness for the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls and Two-Spirited peoples. And we honor the victims and we support their families and we work for systematic change. And I will be tying all of this together at the end of what I'm going to say. And next week is Canadian Mental Health Week. And the theme this year is Come Together All, with a focus on supporting belonging and supporting well-being. And these 3 areas absolutely link within our strategic plan, and the topics of safety, truth and reconciliation, and belonging. And they also tie into the work that our district has supported for our Gender-Based Violence Committee and the work that's going to continue on in that area. I look forward to working together tonight as we move through a robust agenda and navigate a variety of topic areas, and in a 2-hour-ish window, and we'll see how it goes. So thank you all. Superintendent?
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you for reminder of what's happening today and what's coming up. I'm going to kind of call us back over the last month, which has been a really action-packed, busy time. Schools are in full swing, and I think there was a return from spring break with renewed energy, focus, and enthusiasm. So I'm just going to cover a couple of examples of learning and connection and opportunity that's taken place over the last month. It's not a comprehensive list, but wanted to cover a few things. So I'll start by talking about a new event that occurred this year, which was the floorball event that involved 10 elementary schools coming together at Vanier and Quinish to play floorball. Great opportunity to demonstrate sportsmanship and connect with their peers from across the district, and organized and facilitated by Gina, our physical literacy instructor or teacher, support teacher. We had, I think it was just last week, a whole bunch of young women upstairs as part of the Hacker Gal Hackathon, which was hosted here, which welcomes students from across the district for a day of innovation, collaboration, and problem solving. So much energy in the room as student teams refine their ideas and practice their presentations in advance of National Pitch Day. So a sincere thank you to all the teachers, particularly the teacher librarians who accompanied and supported their teams throughout the event. I know a number of folks here were part of our Committee of the Whole meeting or partner engagement night with the Long Range Facilities Plan. That's now well underway, the survey that was discussed at that time. And it's open and available on the Comox Valley website. We've had over 500 responses so far. I believe it ends May 13th. So we're grateful for those folks who have taken the time to share that feedback as input to help shape the future of learning environments in our schools. This month, students, staff, and district leaders had the opportunity to participate in meaningful visits to the Kumagway Big House through the leadership of our Indigenous Education Department. So participants who were fortunate enough to attend learned directly from highly respected local Indigenous knowledge holder Keisha Everson. The opportunity to participate in the learning in Kumagway helps us connect and further our learning of the history and culture of this land, and we're so grateful for the learnings and teachings with our district community. Another important highlight this month was the District Spelling Bee Championships that were hosted at Brooklyn Elementary. 15 schools participated in an event filled with courage, confidence, and community spirit, and I understand the courage I would not want to be publicly spelling, and I want to thank the staff and volunteers who make that event such a success. Wanted to also mention that earlier this month, students took part in the Tourism and Hospitality Springboard event, where they visited local sites which included Crown Isle, Mount Washington, Hot Chocolates, Courtney Museum, Philburg Lodge and Summer Kitchen, Cumberland Lake Park, Dark Side Chocolate's a bit of a theme on chocolate, and the Sid Williams Theatre. And these experiences help students explore the wide variety of future careers while seeing firsthand the many industries that contribute to our local economy. I wanted to mention our Comox Valley's Robotics 71 team, 7842 Fractal. I'm sure 7842 means something with computer coding. I'm not quite sure what it means, except that that's a name for a team that traveled all the way to St. Louis, Missouri, representing not only Comox Valley, but Vancouver Island. There's 865 teams that participate in the World Robotics Championship, so I can only imagine the cacophony of sound and chaos of parts and pieces. And our team finished 39th in their division and among the top 390 teams worldwide. And I just would acknowledge that those kinds of opportunities happen because of supportive parents, committed teachers, and students who are really invested in those opportunities. So congratulations to the group of students and to the coaches, parents, and volunteers who make that possible. I also wanted to thank members of IEC, DPAC, CDTA, CUPE, and our CPVPA who were part of our first admin procedures working group. I met yesterday for a fulsome over 3-hour meeting as we begin initiating the review of all 185 administrative procedures in the hopes that we have a user-friendly, discernible, accessible, comprehensive administrative procedures plan. So I'm letting everyone know in the public that we will likely be seeing a steady group of administrative procedures flow through the public board meetings over the next, I would say, year as we do that work. So really grateful, and it's amazing to be in a group of people who are passionate about administrative procedures and really investing in clarity and it's just I actually got a little a little bit of adrenaline myself as we were working through some of the details and the administrative procedures. So really grateful for that group of folks who are so committed to improving the way in which we respond and are accessible to the public and to all those that need to be able to access and understand administrative procedures. It's just an exciting time of year. And with all of the celebrations of learning and the celebrations of learning communities, just acknowledging that those learning communities and those celebrations happen because of the extra efforts and attention and dedication and commitment that our staff have, as well as our parents, in supporting the learning and the learning communities that happen each year in Comox Valley Schools. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to do a check-in with Trustee Leslie. Just if you could do a sound check for us, Susan, to let us know that we can hear you when it's time you'd like to raise your voice. Oh, did not. I'm glad we're doing this now. No, now your microphone's off. So our tech team is busy looking at the screen, even though it doesn't look like they're looking at you. And I'm gonna turn it over to Sean to see if you and Candace
I'll get it straightened out.
can connect. Candace can provide Sean with Susan's number if you guys need to do some texting. All right, we'll carry on while the magic works, and we may or may not Susan pop up when the time works. Thanks, Susan. We'll work on that for you. I'm glad we did a little bit of a check. We will move on to our trustee reports, and we'll start off with our BC School Trustee Association report by the trustee, Chelsea.
Hello. Yeah, I won't add anything so much or speak to the report itself. I think it covers themes certainly from the academy that we all, the annual general meeting that we all attended and the professional learning that went with. However, I did just want to share that I was really grateful to be there with Chair Waite and with Trustee Caton and with our Secretary Treasurer, Harold. And I know our team always wishes that we could be there all together, but I think that it also offered opportunities to connect maybe more so with other trustees as well across the province. And I really felt a lot of time was spent in making sure that we were supporting reciprocally from district to district. And I felt that I learned a lot in those conversations, sometimes more than we would if we're all there together. So I will say there's bonuses on both of those ends, and I think there was some good learning there. The one thing that I was just going to share, that we had a colleague or a friend who will say, a trustee from Qualicum School District who recommended a book to us, and it's called Transgender Justice in Schools. She said that it was an incredible book that she's read. Anyways, I purchased it and it will live in our trustee office. But I'm also happy because I own it for if anybody ever wanted to use it as well, you're more than welcome to. It was highly recommended by Qualicum School District. So that's all I'll say to the report. Thank you.
And then Christy, the Indigenous Education Council report as our trustee representative.
Yeah, the only thing that I maybe I forgot to add is we were still hoping for a NIDES parent representative, which we now have, which is wonderful. So we have a new member to the IEC from NIDES, a parent rep. So that's probably it. If anybody has any questions.
Just if any trustee has a question or comment on either report, please feel free to raise your hand. Thanks to both of you for the reports and for the additional information that you shared with us tonight. I'm going to look at Sean and see, oh, not quite yet, we'll keep going. And just some information that our next open committee of the whole meeting is May 12th, 2026, starting at 7 o'clock. We're still finalizing the topics. We will have those out very shortly. Some of it was contained in some of the work we were just doing before we came upstairs tonight. So we will get that out as soon as we can. And next, I'm going to move on to our ad hoc policy committee board report, because I'm looking at Sean and he doesn't look quite ready. And I would look to a trustee
Sure, I can do
to.
it.
Thank you.
The Board of Education of School District 71 Comox Valley appoint trustee Shannon Aldinger as the ad hoc policy committee chair for the remainder of the 2025-2026 academic year or until successor appointments are approved by the board.
Seconded by Chelsea. And then I promise, Shannon, I will get to the report. Maybe I misstepped and did it a little bit out of order. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that carries. Thank you very much. I will ask the committee chair, Shannon, to speak to the agenda items regarding ad hoc policy.
Well, thank you. Yes, so the policy committee board report is set out at pages 15 to 17 of the agenda package. It covers 2 meetings that we've held in April, the 7th and the 21st. We felt we needed a couple of meetings to kind of catch up to where we feel we need to be and to welcome our newest committee member, Trustee Caton. And we have a few items that are of particular note, largely because they will require motions. But the first one is in relation to following or considering recommendations put forward by our consultant, Scott Stinson, for a standardized policy template so that we have an efficient policy development and implementation process that supports consistency, clarity, and alignment across all of our policies. We reviewed, we put together a proposed list of policies to prioritize in relation to our review and any revisions between now and the end of the school year. Those are set out at page 16. They include the trustee election bylaw as the first on the list, followed by the gender-based violence sexual misconduct policy, the next being equity and non-discrimination policy. The fourth would be a new policy for sanctuary schools. And then 5, 6, and 7 are 3 policies that have been identified by our professional association, the BC Trustees Association, as ones that they recommend be prioritized. And then an 8th policy, which is not specifically listed and is more embedded in or implicit in item D, consider the board committee structure, would be to look at review and possibly revise our policy 8 board committees, and with a particular view to seeking some changes to our committee of the whole structure. And then we will have at least 2 more meetings before the end of the school year, May 5th and June 16th. There's already been some talk of maybe adding a 3rd one, but our Tuesdays in May are very busy, so we continue to hope that we can get it all done in those 2 meetings. Shall I start the motion process? All right. So the motion is that the Board of Education of School District 71, Comox Valley, direct the ad hoc policy committee to develop a standardized policy template for consideration and approval.
Second that.
Would anybody like to speak to the motion? Seeing no hands raised, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you.
And then the second motion, or I suppose the third embedded in this report, is that the Board of Education of School District number 71, Comox Valley, approve the prioritized list of policies to review by the ad hoc policy committee for the 2025-26 school year. And I should say the, as amended to include the policy 8 board committees as presented.
Christie, thank you. Any questions, thoughts? None at this time. Alrighty, all those in favor of the recommended motion? And that's carried. There's none opposed. And then the last, sorry, Shannon, you did share the next 2 meeting dates of the committee. And looking for a trustee to
Yes, that the Board of Education of School District Number 71, Comox Valley, receive the board committee reports as presented.
Thank you, Sarah Jane, and seconded by Shannon. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And I'm just going to look to our tech team, and we're going to try to do a sound check for Susan. Yay, we can. Okay, and were you able to hear the meeting? Wonderful. Okay, thank you, Susan. Right. Okay, next, moving on to agenda item number 10, is the approval of the 3-year district calendar. 3 years district calendars. Over to Associate Superintendent Jay Dixon.
Perfect, thank you. Just want to let you know, in your package, you will have a copies of the next 2 years of our school calendar. You will notice it's kind of been rebranded and rebooted from the look itself. Hopefully help parents and community members find it and be able to follow it over the next few years. So just to start off, I really want to thank the committee for the conversations, willingness just to have a respectful look at just a variety of perspectives and come to a unanimous consensus. So that's within this recommendation. All of these days, every little colored date on there, those 3 years, was discussed around the table. And we had about 111 survey results from community members when we put it out. And in general, the respondents were positive and provided the committee members some healthy items to discuss. Themes, as you'll see in the briefing note, were around the particular placement and scheduling of the days, requests for more alignment to neighboring school districts. We have maintained a 2-week spring break in the years ahead. And that's something that all partners we're requesting in this process. And really work towards balancing where those non-instructional days were, connecting to conversation around what other demands are in the community, whether it's soccer tournaments or major holidays, a lot of back and forth around the table. And we have come to putting together these 3, what we feel is pretty solid years to help us plan the next steps in our school district. Our next steps, if approved, will be schools will work with their staff and adjust, if needed, any daily schedule for next year. Work with parents and students to inform everybody. We'll be publishing these calendars on the website. And thanks to the feedback from community and the calendar committee, we'll be posting this year for the first time an FAQ. So some kind of facts answering some of the questions or comments that were in the community feedback. We found that we providing some more education. We are in the business of education, may help people understand why our committee selected specific dates and requirements that we are obligated to run the school act. There'll be a media release as well. And it's about just really informing everybody so they can plan for their lives in the next few years. Open your mind.
Sarah Jane?
I just had a quick comment question. Over the last couple of years, not that I'm avidly on social media, but one kind of like complication that was coming up around the calendars that was a common theme to me, and I'm just not aware if it came up in your committee or not, but I hope that it has, was just where, like, how to find it on our website versus the online calendar, because they're different. And so just maybe a little highlight on that, so that it could be in a more visible spot, so that it wasn't the confusion happening as I've seen in the past.
We've had that feedback on a variety of days.
Oh, awesome. Great.
And that's one of the reasons why we've recruited the look of it.
Yeah.
And we're going to go through the website and try to pull any remnants of older calendars.
Yeah, great job. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that.
That's awesome.
Something that I know our communication managers on top of.
Yeah, just a quick question. In terms of the next steps, I see that you have schools adjust their daily schedule if needed. Does that mean like an adjustment of minutes of the day, or is that something different? And just also, do we have a sense of how many schools would need to do that at this point? Like, is that something that's fairly consistent across the district?
Yeah, we've calculated all the instructional minutes, hours, school act requirements, and working with the CDTA around contract language. And we've come to an agreement that to meet the needs of these calendars, we'll need to add an additional 5 minutes of an instructional time to our elementary schools next year. So our principals have already worked on scenarios. It has a minimal impact to the school day busing. It could be 2 minutes at the beginning, or 2.5 minutes, 2 minutes around the lunchtime. But we will be adding 5 minutes, and that's to ensure we can maintain 2 weeks for break. And thanks to the CDTA with walking that road together.
Annie, I'm looking for a trustee to make the motion.
And that the Board of Education of School District Number 71, Comox Valley, approve the 2026-27, 2027-28, and 2028-29 district school calendars as presented.
Chelsea, Christie. See no hands for further discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Thank you. Next, I will turn the next agenda item over to our Secretary Treasurer, Harold Kell.
Thanks, Michelle. It's getting that time of year where it's bylaw season. So first we'll talk about the capital bylaw this month, and then we'll move into the annual budget bylaw next month. But part of the regular process, we put together some information starting on page 23 of the board package. It talks about the bylaw process. So this is the back end of the capital plan submission that the board would have submitted for the major capital plan back in June, and the minor capital plan back in September. So the ministry has provided a response, and that response letter starts on page 27 and provides on the following pages the approval that we've received as a district this year. As you can see, we've got some money from the school enhancement program, the SEP, for the exterior wall systems at the school, CNCP project, as well as the food and infrastructure program through some kitchen equipment upgrades. And then our PEP, which is the playground enhancement program at Ecol Road Secondary that we've been working with the PAC on over the last little while. So Part of the process, in order to be able to spend that capital money, the board is required to pass the capital bylaw. So that's provided as part of the package as well. Through discussions with Molly, and Molly's in a couple minutes after the board considers the motions, we'll kind of go over through the annual facilities, the AFG plan for next year as well. So that actual approval comes through the annual budget bylaw. A little bit of a mistake, but I provided information on the package. So that approval is done formally through the operating budget because it's part of Schedule 3A, but we wanted to make sure that as we start the AFG year, the board has that information on what projects are being working in. I'll pass that over to Molly in a couple minutes to walk the board through that. But getting back to the capital bylaw itself, requires 2 motions. So that first motion is required if the board is willing and wanting to do all 3 readings in one sitting. So that initial bylaw needs to be unanimous to be able to get to the second bylaw, which is actually doing 3 readings of the bylaw. So a process I think we've done in previous years around the capital piece, because it is pretty straightforward having that response back from the ministry. So just asking for the board to consider those 2 motions, and would be happy to answer any questions trustees may have.
I have a question. When I look back on our minor or our capital request that we submitted in June, it looks like none of those were approved, or the ministry didn't support any of those. They supported some of our September minor capital requests. Do you have a sense? We hear the government's indicating that money's tight, but do you have a sense from your colleagues, or perhaps our director has a sense from their colleagues? Is there is every district getting a little and a few getting a little more, or is there a sense of
Yeah.
the lens?
Molly, did you want to maybe start? And if you have heard anything from your colleagues, and I can add to it for sure.
I can say that our capital planning officers have noticed a decrease in major capital approvals. Part of that is just the costs, to do additions and new schools now are so high that we don't have as much peanut butter to spread on the toast. So they have indicated that there's been a decrease, especially in things like the seismic program and replacement program. There's still a focus on need for space, and those commitments some have actually carried over. That has put like additional strain on their budget, which has reduced the amount of projects that new projects that they're approving.
I think consistent with the conversation I've had with a limited number of districts, I know one growing district south of us didn't receive any additional capital builds. So it's, I think things are tight, like you said, throughout the province, not only in our sector, but in other sectors as well.
Any questions or comments from trustees on this item before we move to the motion section?
Move it.
All right, Sarah Jane.
The Board of Education of School District 71, Comox Valley, give all 3 readings of the capital bylaw number 2026-27 CPSD 71-01 in one meeting this 28th day of April 2026.
Seconded by Christy. Thank you. All those in favor? I believe this one needs to be unanimous for us to carry forward. That was unanimous. Thank you. And the next recommended motion.
I can read that one too, that the Board of Education of School District number 71, Comox Valley, give first, second, and third readings to the capital bylaw number 2026-27 CPSD 71-01.
By Chelsea. All those in favor? Opposed? And carried.
The reason we turn over to Molly to kind of walk us through the AFG plan.
Wonderful. If that's where is that where we are?
Yeah, it's page 33. We kind of combined the AFG plan, capital piece.
Did I go too fast?
Nope, you're
Okay.
right on schedule. It's all same part of the same agenda item.
All right.
I kind of squished those maybe
Director of
incorrectly.
Operations, Molly.
The annual facility grant, this is for 26, 27. We've received about an additional $100,000 this year from last year's AFG fund. It stands for the annual facilities grant. And it's a great fund, very appreciative of it. It allows us to target like maintenance and improvement projects that range from $5,000 up to like $500,000. So it really helps us keep our facilities up to shape. So you'll see a list of some of the classic projects that we put under AFG. In around the middle of May, we'll put those into our MyCap system. And throughout the season, we actually can dynamically change that depending on where our needs are. And that's kind of where we're at with it.
I had a question in regards to the funding, and I was just curious, with the maintenance and such, I was wondering if sensory rooms would be included under that umbrella or not.
Yeah, so they do allow for, you can't purchase furniture and equipment under AFG. So say if you were converting a old computer lab into a sensory space, like the electrical or like the lighting and the built systems would fall under AFG. Okay. And then the furniture would have to be likely like a local capital expense.
Okay, thank you.
I don't see any other hands raised, so thank you, Molly. Next, we're going to move to the learning services section tonight. And for the first part, we will have our Associate Superintendent, Joe Heslip, share information. I don't want to say highlights because sometimes it's not, of the How Are We Doing report.
Sure, it's good. See it on camera. Susan, can you see me? It's important that you do.
You're welcome, Joe.
Just want to begin by acknowledging that we are here in this beautiful territory, watching the sunset, witnessing the sun leave leave us in the evening coming upon us here in these beautiful territories that we get to live on. And those are the territories of the Pentlatch Ikes and Shawflute and Sasebla. And I'm grateful to walk alongside, gently alongside Comox First Nation, and I'm grateful that you're here tonight. Aaron? So just a little bit of background. Folks that were here last year will remember that this may be a part of the slide that continues until the Ministry of Education moves from the terminology of Aboriginal to Indigenous. That work is still underway. We're going to be speaking about the How Are We Doing report, obviously. And one of the things I do want to say, it's not in my notes here, but I'm very passionate about this report. It's a 63-page report and it is public. So I tried to be brief, but and I will do my best. But one of the things that I think to just start us off with this is that there's going to be a lot of numbers, a lot of percentages. And I think it's very, very important that we remember at every single slide and piece that we're talking about lives, kids, life trajectories, expectations, their feeling of success in the system that we're working in. Please don't, this is for me, don't get lost in the numbers. They're human beings. You're going to see some masks data here. We won't be, you'll just see mask in there, and that's just for sample sizes that are small, 9 or under. I try to share as much as possible, and I'm going to share slides that are publicly available, but you'll kind of notice like, that looks like I can figure out the masked there data. But anyhow, this is a piece that we're still working on. I remember feeling inadequate at the last time we talked about this, and I feel slightly better this time, but not all the way there. So according to the How Are We Doing report, when we're looking at SD 71's data, the total number of Indigenous students is 2,006. We did not have 2,006 students in 24-25 school year. Our actual, just looking at our numbers, was 1,846. So that's a difference of 326. And so there's 160 Indigenous students difference in the How Are We Doing report, yet there's still 166 of the 326 that we count that's not factored into our data. So I thought about it today, it's almost like where we're getting close to getting exact data, but imagine like expert dart players getting really close to the bullseye, just left, just right, and it's forever changing. And I'll get to that in a moment with the slide that we're in, but in a later slide. And this is important too. FNESC continues to advocate for gap analysis. So we're really going to focus today on FSA, numeracy, and literacy results. There are, within the How Are We Doing report, also student learning survey results, but we're going to talk about that at a later meeting. So here we go. When we start off with the report looking at Indigenous students and non-Indigenous, Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal in the alternate programs. And so if we look over the 5-year period, and again, apologies for my little scribbles there, but we have 83 total in our district for Indigenous and 97 for non-Indigenous. And just to give you an idea, Indigenous learners are 16% of all Comox school learners, so 16.6%. And so to give you an idea of when we're looking at our percentage versus the province is around 11%, okay? 11% of the students are Indigenous. So when we look at this, this information, we see that Indigenous learners are 46% of the alternate program learners. So if we look, and by the way, someone might want to ask, you're wondering what's with all the sticky notes? That's just provincial data. I might highlight some things, but I imagine some people might be curious as to how we're stacking up against the province. So you can ask at any time about that. We're pretty much in line with the province there. So now we're looking at women or girls and boys, those that identify as girls and women or boys. And you can see last year we're pretty much holding steady. So 50% girls, 33% boys, same as the year before. That's roughly 60-40 split there. And in the province, the numbers are 57% for girls and the boys 43% in alternate programs. By the way, I didn't smuggle in any extra slides. If you're going, hey, where's that in the slide deck? That's because when I was creating the slide deck, this was the first part of the slide, and then the thing after it goes over there. So I'm not smuggling in extra data, but we're seeing just the numbers here. So the numbers of Indigenous learners that have an inclusive education category, that's all of the inclusive education categories. You can see 337 in that school year versus non-Indigenous at 34. So this is that same data on a different scale here. So percentage of students identified in inclusive education category. You can see we've been holding steady for 5 years there. Looking at 5 years worth of data, blue being the most recent year. And that will be consistent throughout this entire presentation and report. Okay. So if we're looking at students identified in an inclusive education category, these are specific categories that we really like to look at. Keeping in mind, once again, that Indigenous learners are 16% of our population. I'm always really interested in the behavior, mental health designations here for Indigenous versus non-Indigenous, usually higher for Indigenous learners, and that's throughout the province. So you'll notice we have 18% for Indigenous learners in 24-25 with a behavior mental health designation versus 12% for non-Indigenous. But I think this one I do want to bring in the province. The province is 28% versus 18% for Indigenous learners. So that bar is way higher for the province versus 20% of non-Indigenous learners. Here is some news. You might think it's good news as far as moving in the direction of equity, but it's just a trend over 5 years. If you notice the percentage of Indigenous learners in alternate programs, you can see 5 years ago, it was quite stacked. 73% were Indigenous, and now it's moving down towards 53, whereas non-Indigenous 27 up to 47%. And you'll notice there aren't exact numbers here, and that's because at least one of the data points over the 5 years was masked. So we just get percentages only, okay? I drank coffee before this. Am I speaking too fast? We can interrupt the program. I'm going to be speaking through a lot of numbers. This chapter is going to be about literacy. Okay, we're going to take grade 4 all the way through to grade 12. So again, we want to show data wherever we can. You'll notice that lots is masked. So for this one, we're going with emerging. All other slides we're going to be really working on track, because that's just the way the data lay for us. So if we look at literacy, for grade 4 students, Indigenous learners 54 versus 38 in emerging. Okay, you want to be the lower number there. And just to give an idea, we're really in line with the province. That's 52% for Indigenous and 38 as a province. So if we move to grade 7, now we're moving over from emerging to on track. Sorry, but masked data made us do that work. So if we're looking at grade 7, we've got 55 versus 67%. So there's that gap that's widening there in grade 7. And just a note that we are above the province, the provincial average for literacy grade 7, they're 49% for Indigenous learners. Moving on to grade 10 literacy assessment. So we look there, and we're looking at Indigenous, that's on the left. 62% are proficient or extending in the grade 10 literacy, and 73 versus 73% in non-Indigenous learners. Okay, then when we move, so we're seeing that gap change and go throughout the years here in literacy. Numeracy will be a different piece altogether. And again, 70% are proficient or extending in the literacy assessment for grade 12 for Indigenous versus 80%. I think that's where I have some data here. So if we look at the province, right now we're at 70% for Indigenous, it's 57 for the province for Indigenous learners. And 78 for non-Indigenous is for non-Indigenous, and we're at 80%. So we're pretty much in line for non-Indigenous learners, but considerably higher on the Indigenous side of things. Moving to numeracy. Okay, that was literacy. Now moving on. Numeracy, and this will have a bit of an extension here. So we're looking at the same kind of data. We're looking at on track, 55 versus 57, kind of at parity for who's on track. Let's go to grade 7. Grade 7, numeracy, we see a gap widening there. 47 for Indigenous learners and versus 58 for non-Indigenous learners. And we are pretty much right in line with the province. They're at 49% for Indigenous learners there on track. Moving to grade 10. This is where we see the gap widen quite a bit. 37% on the numeracy assessment for Indigenous learners are at proficient or extending versus 57%. And to give you some provincial data on this, so our 37% is considered high in the province, which is a unfortunate number. The province is actually sitting at 28% for the grade 10 numeracy assessment for Indigenous learners, and 51% for non-Indigenous. So we are higher on both counts there.
Can I ask a quick question?
Go ahead first.
Yeah, I invited you to invite.
Sorry, so when you're talking about the number of writers versus the actual students in that grade, how close are those numbers so that when I'm looking at the percentage, I'm like, can value it in my head?
Yeah, I mean, through our district, we have a specific number of writers that have done the 4, the 7, the 10.
Yep.
And they're going to be a percentage. The exact percentage is on probably page 13 of the report.
Okay.
I did like the actual how are we doing report. You can see that data, the numbers are are available. And I do break it down in specific data sets here where I thought it was really important to show the percentage of students, but we do have a higher percentage of students that do this work. So it is a valid representation of our district. It's not perfect.
Yep.
It's not every student. Sorry, other questions?
She's first, I'm out.
Yeah, going back to the numeracy grade 4, it's wonderful to see a reduction in the gap there. And I'm curious to what the province is sitting for the grade 4s.
Grade 4 numeracy assessment?
Yeah.
So on track, the province is at 46% for Indigenous versus our 55%. And the province is sitting at 62% for on track for non-Indigenous, where we are at 57%. So we're just a little lower with that.
Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Yes.
So my question is the comparison between our district and the provincial assessments. The minister has stated and the government has stated that provincially wise, they are not happy with the numeracy and literacy results within the province itself. So, and while we're doing better than the provincial average, they're still not happy with the provincial average. So my question is, based on that and based on what we're hearing, and this is probably not the time or place, but what are we doing then to therefore improve what we're seeing within our district and the provincial wise, and how are we going to do that? Because if the government is saying that numeracy and literacy within the province, within our students, is failing, because that's what they've said, this tells me that there's a problem within the system. How is we as a district then going to, it's probably not in your how we're doing, but we need to do more, and how are we going to do more to ensure that our numbers are coming up, but yet the provincial numbers are still not as where they're supposed to be? It's kind of a convoluted question, but.
It absolutely is, and I know that it requires a complicated answer as well. As far as provincially, you're bang on. I think the trajectory, you can see the numbers are going down, and we're actually, at British Columbia, higher than most other jurisdictions as well. So this is a cross-Canada, US major problem. And as far as things go in our district, I know that we're really exploring data and really getting to understand and have those numeracy frameworks, literacy frameworks to be able to see and be able to assist students earlier on. And as far as this is just, I mean, you can't not spin this on one person, right? But we, and I don't want to get too far into this because we will talk about it next in a future presentation. But we do have, through the IEC's wisdom of seeing these numbers with literacy, having a wonderful Indigenous teacher expert who's doing that work. But you can't have one person do this work, right? That's the change that needs to occur in this district and all districts, is that we're all building that capacity for address and seeing that gap, knowing what that gap is and knowing it exists, and making steps to move in a better direction. But I could be here all night long about that one question. And I can Jay up here, and I need Vivian to come on over and create that plan. And that's what we will be doing. But that's the whole core of our work. Thanks for asking a really easy question.
I'll make it harder next time.
Shall I move on? Foundations in pre-calc. Okay, so we're looking at, this is one that looks like I smuggled it in, didn't. This is just the beginning here. So B plus or better, or B or better, we've got 54% versus 72% for non-Indigenous. So now if we're going to flip over and see what C plus or better looks like, Indigenous 66% in foundations in pre-calc math versus 83% there. We are of provincial average there. We're at least 10% above for Indigenous learners. Workplace math is the next piece. So we're going to look at B plus or better. You can see the gap yourself. I'm not going to articulate it. See the red there. And then if the same class, looking at C plus or better, 46 versus 63%. And we are right in line right there with the province. They're at 47% versus 57. So we're pretty close there. We look at science 10, 62 compared to the province is at 50%, and then 80% for non-Indigenous versus 73 for the province. I have to apologize for the top left corner here where it says 12% of students taking pre-calc 11. This gets to your question around how many people took the course versus how many are actually in that class. So if we look at it, and I wrote myself a little note here to clarify, 12% of all Indigenous students, including NIDES, taking pre-calc 11, that's the percentage that they're getting. So you can see there's a lot of students not taking pre-calc 11 learners. And that's 12% there. And to give you an idea for those non-Indigenous learners that are getting 81% there, that's 23% of all non-Indigenous learners that are taking that. So you can see that like the gap there is who's taking the courses matters there too. Calculus, pre-calculus, what was I looking at there? That's that, yeah, and this is the C+ or above. You can see when you get into those upper level courses, it's like, hey, there's no gap here. Everything's great. But it's not if you think about the percentage of Indigenous learners that are actually taking the course versus non-Indigenous. So we can get tricked by data in this one here. And this is Calculus 12, B+ or better. We had to mask some of this data. And then looking at it, oh, 100% we're above, but it's masked, so you know it's small. Okay? Flying through here now, this is something that Susan will be very familiar with. We're looking through the 6-year trajectory. Almost every district has a similar story with regards to the gap, and where the gap happens. Actually happens a little bit later for us, for Indigenous learners. So grade 8 through till completion, Indigenous learners are the 72% versus the 81%. This is of course including NIDES. Again, I want to mention that again and again here, because this is not entirely accurate for brick and mortar schools. And this is that same data, just looking, well, that data, that endpoint looking a little bit different. We're looking at Indigenous 6-year completion rates versus non-Indigenous. You get a 5-year idea as to where that trend's going. I don't like that it's going down right now in the Indigenous data point there.
How does that compare to the province?
Oh, how does that compare to the province? I actually will show you a 10-year piece where our 6- and 5-year completion rates are comparing to the province. So you can see that gap in our next slide. Yes.
You're saying that these also include NIDES Navigate within your data? Mm-hmm. So, but NIDES Navigate is kind of not quite accurate because it has an ebb and flow. So if you took out NIDES Navigate and you look at our brick and mortar classrooms, would that actually be higher or look, because I know that NIDES Navigate, because I know the grade 12, it does not do a true picture of what's happening within our district because it is a totally complex school. So I'm curious is if you took NIDES Navigate out of it, would our rates actually be higher than what you're showing right there?
Well, as usual, Janice, you're ahead of the curve, and we'll get to that. I will get to that later, but I will say the I want to really be clear about this because I don't want to offend any of my of the teachers or colleagues that I have in NIDES. I really respect what NIDES brings to our district, what it brings for students, and I've met students where this is their absolute first choice, where they want to be. However, lots of students go into NIDES for all kinds of reasons. And some students say, I don't want to grad from NIDES. I want to grad from Hazelton or from wherever. And so they pop in and they pop out, and that impacts our data because they live with us in this. So that's why I think it's my next slide. There it is. See, you were one click ahead of the curve. And that's where we look at the one NIDES data point here. Am I going to? We're good. 42% is our completion rate of Indigenous learners when we factor in NIDES. So if you take that like just NIDES, then you start thinking, how does that impact our whole cohort? Right? That's a big difference, a difference maker. So what we did was we looked at the Power BI data, and this is what I mean about the dartboard ever moving. I thought I was going crazy because I talked to Alana yesterday, and I said, I used to be able to break down this data into these different filters. What happened? On the back end at the ministry, they have changed the functionality. But luckily, I was able to make this before they made that change. So here you would ask, how are we stacking up against the province? This is six-year completion rate data from our province versus us. So, and this is including NIDES. So our completion rate for Indigenous learners, we are the orange line, and the province is the blue line. Okay, so we can see that data over 10 years. So now this gets not as complicated as it looks. So we're looking at Indigenous learners and non-Indigenous learners for the 6-year completion rate. When we only factor in alternate and standard schools only. Standard schools only, so our brick and mortar, okay? So when I looked in there, and we factor out NIDES, we're factoring out NIDES right now. 96.8% is our 6-year completion rate for non-Indigenous learners versus 87.4% for Indigenous learners. So I know it's the how are we doing report, but I'm also feeling like it needs to have a bit of like, how are we doing with the data from how are we doing? So if we look at the 5-year completion rate, this is including NIDES, et cetera. No disrespect to NIDES, it's an amazing school. And Indigenous versus non-Indigenous, we can see the gap there. And then the same data trajectory. So again, the blue line represents the province over 10 years. Sorry, I've been standing in front of you. And we're just under with 63%. Now, the 5-year, again, Indigenous learners versus non-Indigenous learners, you can see 95.6% for the 5-year completion rates versus 84.2. So that's much different than our lower grad rates in our 5-year completion rates in the How Are We Doing report. That'll make sense to everybody. Good to me. Okay, good. I'm almost done. Just want my last slide here to talk about adult dogwoods, because often we wonder how many people are you pushing through a system, right? In other districts, I would often ask that. We're not doing that here. We've been pretty consistent. We've got 26% of all adult dogwoods in our district are Indigenous versus 74. And again, keeping in mind that we have 16% Indigenous learners. When we look at the province is actually 29% versus 71. You might think, well, we're kind of comparable. They're a little higher, but they're way higher when you think we're 16% of the population, including NIDES, and province is 10. So really, we're about 10% over, right? Our rate, but the province is 18% over, almost double. So the amount of time of space where we are, where kids are being graduated through an adult dogwood versus a dogwood here is much, much lower. That's something I was pleased to see when I first got here. The last thing I would just say is, I don't know if page 13 was the exact page of the How Are We Doing report. I was making a guess, but there will be something that says exactly the page number where you could find the number of players for each of those assessments. And that is the end of my 15-minute presentation.
Thank you. Just checking to see if you can only take questions from the board at this point. That was hard to say. Yeah.
I have a quick question.
Go ahead.
If that's okay. So when we come around to sort of like what's in the works right now in our district to get more precise data?
Great question. We
so that we can support our students better, because this data just always seems to like not totally accurately depict what's happening.
We have Power BI data, dashboards that we are using, and now through the school growth plans, we are accessing student learning survey data, FSA data. Every school will have attendance data as well. And it will all be consistent throughout, and it's all tied to the core competencies, and whichever core competencies the schools feel are most important to focus on. And I think, I was talking to Jay today, and he said, what would be great is we should be really sharing this particular data set, the one that you just are going to do tonight, with the principals.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it was weird, because I'm going to do this with the IEC, and I knew we were going to do this tonight, and I just thought, yes, Jay, great idea. It's just building that data awareness, and where it's just what we do, right? Some of you remember this presentation last year. It's iterative in nature, so I hope it's a little bit more informative and a little bit better this year. And I kind of hope that like all of our principals feel the same way, and our teachers feel the same way about how we're doing with our students.
So I have a question in respect to data and how it relates to the Ministry of Education and childcare. We know the ministry loves data. They would like you guys to spend hours upon hours giving as much data as you can to the ministry. But at the end of the day, how does this relate to what we can do in our district better for our students? Is this data actually bringing something back to us saying this is where we need to focus, this is where we're going to put our funds? Like, what is the purpose when you look at all the work that you guys put in collecting this data and you've shared it and it goes to the Ministry of Education and Childcare? And what next is what my question is. Is this going to come back to saying this is where we're going to support you in certain areas, or they just want to know how we're doing so they can stand up there on the podium and give their spiel? I'm kind of critical on that because I've heard data over many years as a trustee, but sometimes I'm wondering where is it relevant to the work that we're doing in our district, in the teachers are doing in the classroom supporting students? How does it correlate?
Well, I think good data gives you better questions, right? It leads you to better questions. You can't possibly address the issues that we're seeing across North America and in BC and within our district in, say, numeracy, without actually acknowledging that it's there. Those problems exist. So seeing that data, being aware of it, and then being able to say, okay, what are some creative ways? What are we doing now? What are some strategies? Which targeted strategies should we test for a while and see if that's working, right? Because we're growing and changing with the population that we're, and we're always going to be pivoting to new strategies. And I think that step one is data literacy. That's just step one. So I think we can't ignore it. We can't go on a hunch. It certainly is very helpful when we think about inequities for Indigenous learners and children in youth and care and children with diverse needs. So we got to articulate those gaps. And maybe the question that you had was going to be around, how are we looking at that data? Like, are we viewing it like that gap? Oh, that's a deficiency with Indigenous learners or learners with diverse needs? No, this is a systems problem, and we need to acknowledge that problem. Sorry, I saw her hand.
Susan has her hand raised. Susan?
Hi, thank you, Joe. Can you hear me?
Sure can.
Great. The data is consistent, I think, to trends happening over the past decade. What I found in our data, which was, it's tough to see, is the percentage of Indigenous students, especially students identifying as female, in alternative school programs. And that, there's a high percentage of students who identify as male as well in alternative school programs. So for me, in interpreting that, do students feel safer in a place, more of a sense of belonging in classrooms that are smaller, in spaces that are more community-based? It generates a lot of questions for me, and unfortunately, this data is consistent and persistent over time. And so I know that our strategic direction is addressing safety, belonging, looking at equity, looking at supporting instructional practices to better support all learners in terms of hands-on experiential learning, incorporating outdoor connections to land and place, and also offering students various access points to learning in order to support individual personalized learning plans and needs of all of our students. Another area that I found a little bit challenging was the representation of Indigenous students in mental health and behavior categories. We're still not there yet. And so I think this information is very relevant and important in the work that the district has prioritized and moving forward in our strategic plan. And I'm really hopeful that the school growth plans that are focusing on competencies will support further successful opportunities for students in terms of access to learning. No other real observations that stand out. What we're hoping to do is close the gap. There's still a gap. The numeracy scores are, they're not great, especially for grade 4 to 7. And then our numeracy exam results for high school students. Anything else? I think that's it. I want to thank you very much for presenting this in a very concise, clear format and for highlighting the pieces that were significant. And as this is just one piece of data, data is always best when it's triangulated, and the work that is happening through satisfaction surveys, through data collected, through the school growth plans, that will also help to tell a more fulsome story. So this is just one component, and I'm really glad that we have it. So thank you, Joe.
I just wanted to just say, obviously as superintendent responsible for outcomes within the system, I really want to emphasize, which I know people in this room share, which is a deep understanding that the gifts, attributes, and abilities of students are equitably distributed, but our results are not. And that the report is not how are our Indigenous students doing, it's how are we doing on behalf of the Indigenous students and community that we serve. And so the deficit is not with our learners, it is with our system that continues to have overrepresentation in categories of deficit and underrepresentation in categories of benefit. So that's the work ahead. We're committed deeply to that work and acknowledging that we as a system and as individuals within the system need to continue to move forward on behalf of the incredible honor and gift it is to be able to be in a position on behalf of community to move forward in shifting our system.
And thank you, Joe, for the information and keeping us accountable for the work that we're here to do. We're going to move on if you're ready to discuss or for you to share with us the local education agreement update with, I believe, are you co-sharing with us?
Yeah.
Okay.
But maybe will I call you up when it's time? Is that okay? Yeah. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Over to you.
I'm interrupting the chair.
Nope.
Sorry, I'm moving over here just for fun so that they can see the screen for a while. So yes, I will be joined by Aaron and Elena, and we do have some data, but far less data than the last presentation. This is just a reminder. This is information that is sent out yearly with the principals and vice principals, reminding folks that this is just what we do. This is the work that we do. We have at least 3 meetings per year for every Comox First Nations student on reserve, and that's usually in the fall, winter, spring. Some have 4. We ask, and this is taken right out of Section 11 from the action plan of our local education agreement. And some of the highlights, we often ask just principals to share a bit of the stories. So this is just a piece, but just looking at absenteeism rates, students attending regularly, that's due to, in no small part, to yourself and Natasha Ranke, as well as lots of work with Indigenous support workers and staff as well. The grad and post-grad planning is a highlight as well for our schools at secondary level. The independent study, this one I really liked reading about, having cultural interests linked to social studies with course work for marks. Love that. Always wanted to see that in schools. school districts where you're able to get marks for doing things that are, it's school. That is school. You should be getting marks for this. Some focus areas in the elementary realm, looking at academics and written output. Some of the supports are, technology, small group intervention, building confidence, social emotional learning as well. Lots of groups, check-ins, and focusing on the whole child and relationship. Here's the data piece that we're looking at, and this pie you might have also seen last year during the report. And in our governance reports, we'll often just highlight the last 3 months. And this is basically looking at all of the supports that are available to any staff member that's working with KFN on reserve students. And so we're looking right now at February. And so if you look at the top 3 for February supports, the biggest pieces of the pie are social emotional learning, social emotional support, that's in for number 1. Number 2 was conversation with student, which is all about relationship as well. And then number 3 in February was academic support, in-class academic support. If we flip over to March, whoa, look at academic support. Something was going on there. 23% was in-class academic support, that's number 1. And then number 2 switches to conversation with student, and number 3 is emotional support. Then we flip to April. I love seeing the circle change and all the different, and then especially when we consider the scope and scale of the amount of interactions with students, which I'm going to share with you in a moment briefly. So number 1, conversation with student, and number 2 in April up to April 21st, that is, student gathering before and after school. What was going on in April, right? We were going down to Kumagway. There's other pieces of work going on. There's things after school programs that just pops out. Sometimes we'll see different pieces come to the fore. Number 3, social emotional support. So you see how relationship is a huge piece, but also academic support, and it's in class and a small group often happens as well. Part of the pie that we saw over time, like if we look at March and then April, for some reason didn't have it, but if you look through it most months, you can actually see what the supports were the year before, which is kind of neat to see, like, how were we in April or May, et cetera. So if we look at all, because here's the piece I want to look at, all. Okay, so this is up to date from September through to April 21st. There were 2,462 unique visits, that's just data entries, to KFN students from September to April 21st. That's including 15 staff members that input that data. That's including Natasha Renke, and 129 service dates. And that's serving was 34 on-reserve learners and now 37 KFN on-reserve learners. And the top 3 most frequent supports over the year thus far has been 1, conversation with student at 16.69%. And last year, this is the year over, last year was actually 21%. So there's been a reduction in conversation with student. Social emotional support, 16% this year, 13% last year. That's an interesting data point change. Academic support in class this year, 13.82%. Last year, 5.73%. That's interesting. And then lastly, I put number 4 as student gathering before, after, and lunch at 14.4%. Food and academic support for small group was at 7% and 5% respectively. So that's the pieces that we would typically share out in a governance meeting. It's all high level because it's such a small number of students that we serve, right? So we're working on how we can communicate better with our partners, and we're doing that work together. Next slide. I'd like to have Lelena share something about holding up Natasha. Oh, there's a question.
I only don't want to pull us back too far, but maybe I'll quickly ask. I was just curious, looking on page 51, where in number 20 in the supports speaks to Teams Zoom meetings for Indigenous, I'm assuming digital learning students?
Yes.
And I guess what I was curious about, because I was grateful to hear there's at this point a decrease in absenteeism. around, in speaking about like soft starts for people, whether those be better served digitally or whether students are changing to digital, because their absenteeism is less so when they have that option. I guess I was just curious if you see a direct correlation between having that sort of opportunity to be digital, and then if that's helping to increase attendance, essentially, or if you think.
Well, that's interesting.
And we might not have that exact data. I just was wondering.
Yeah, and what's interesting is I don't think I've seen Support 20 come up very often in our data. It's almost like it's an option that I haven't seen utilized very much over time.
Okay.
Like I'm looking at right now, I'm looking at all. Maybe there's a month that you're looking at specifically.
That's okay, and I'm slow to pick it all up. It was just.
But I think any opportunity that could be exercised to have students that are not attending attend. Well, one half of that group is in the room right now, and every possible thought based around relationship and needs of the family, and if digital was a piece that would be explored or bringing things to the home. Goodness, there's just a great amount of care around the students.
So what I really wanted to say in this part is thinking about who determines what success looks like and who determines what a success feels like. And so thinking about and watching Natasha do the work every day, Monday to Friday, Saturday, Sunday, lots of times, really it is the student that determines what success looks like and feels like for them, with a lot of times the help from their family and their community too. And so what this looks like is different day to day, week to week, month to month, but Natasha's always in tune with it. She's in the rhythm of the needs around support. And when we ask what Indigenous student success means or KFN student success, you're probably going to get 15 different answers. And they're all important and they're all valuable. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about that to give you a little bit of endless energy with lots of care and love that Natasha puts into this role. When we look at the LEA document, it is a large legal document, and Natasha sometimes is the sole person doing that work. But that comes with a large team, and so I also want to talk a little bit about Erin too. The work that we do sometimes is centering student and family in our conversation. Sometimes it's talking about transportation, sometimes it's talking about traditional foods. But lots of the time it's at the governance level, and how do we start to shift things and the way that we spend and prioritize to center KFN students in all that we do. But where it becomes reciprocal is being the principle of Indigenous education. What's good for KFN students is good for all Indigenous students, and what's good for all Indigenous students is good for all of our students. And so I just wanted to speak a little bit about that, their tireless but very important and amazing work that both Natasha and Erin do.
And ahead of the curve onto the attendance. This here, briefly, just I wanted to share this with you because this was done, this slide, and it was a screen capture, so it looks a little blurry because Ilana and I were at a data screen capture where they were showing us this new data dashboard on attendance ministry. And well, you've heard what's going on in Ontario. Everyone's obsessed with attendance and success. And you can see what happened in 2020. We were hovering with like 15%, 18%, 16%, boom, 21. This is just all students. And you can just see it's just steadily higher, missing 25% of your learning time. And that's for all resident students over multiple districts. So a number of BC districts here. So then I wanted to compare that with our average full day. So I don't want to geek out too much with data, but there's full day and then there's hybrid. And so full day just skews a little higher. For this, so I'm going to give you both data sets, but you wanted to see what it looked like back in 2018, 2019, and then, okay, it starts ramping up, and even here, we're up to 16% And you can tell that we are still, our attendance rates, while we don't like that they've gone up, are still considerably lower than those multiple districts as well as the province, right? So now, same data over 3 years now, and it's hybrid. Because the other data, you can get tricked because if I skip Joe's music class, but I want to go to Jeremy's math class, that's just going to capture me in that first, I don't know, Jeremy's math class. That's a good one. Calculus, pre-calculus with Jeremy. And, but it would count me as absent full day because it just sucks all the data in. Where if we do hybrid, it's a little bit more nuanced. What we can see over the 3 years, absent is still holding pretty steady there for all schools here and this is for all residency students, so just all students basically. Then when we look at this with Indigenous on reserve students, now don't get fooled by this. This changed. It looked like it went lower. No, it didn't. It went way higher, right? We're at 20% here, okay? 21%, 23% coming down off of the pandemic. Again, much lower high attendance rates, lower attendance rates here for us versus the province. Like they have much higher on reserve attendance problems. So that's due in no small part to the work that Lelena just articulated around attendance there. So I just wanted to share that's something that we're working on together. And we're talking about things like an attendance protocol, ways that we can start building in those systems that don't penalize the kids, but build that capacity. So it's like, Candace hasn't shown up for 5 days. Maybe there's a family holiday, but maybe after 10 days, maybe someone should notice you're not here anymore, right? And so then we should have a system in place for that. And what does that look like to the nation? We're working together to figure that out. Now I'm going to hand it over to you to close out the presentation with Lelena. And I'll give you the clicker, because I've been talking for a long time. You don't want it? You want the clicker? Yeah.
And this is what makes us a good team. Thank you, Joe. Good evening. My name is Erin Higginbottom. I am the education manager for Comox First Nation. And it is always an honor and a privilege to be standing amongst a wonderful group of educators and people supporting the good work that's happening in this district. So I'd like to say thank you to Joe for approaching and extending an invite to come and present together this evening. We talk about it a lot, and so we should be definitely demonstrating it as well. So I appreciate the invite.
Next to you.
Oh, thank you. So I was thinking about how I wanted to frame and present this work of walking together. And I think, you know, we had a really lovely meeting this afternoon discussing something, and I thought about what we share in common in this work. So we're all passionate, engaged, and knowledgeable educators and parents. We give space to each other's voices. We share a good sense of humor with one another. We enjoy dining at quality foods. But what was a really nice, gentle reminder today, and a good reminder, was that none of us are Comox First Nation members. And that unites us in this work because we are all here as uninvited guests to this really beautiful and bountiful territory, where we have the honor and the privilege to serve the local nation, and none of us take that lightly. We support each family and each individual child and student in their educational journey. So this unity has served us well in strengthening our team in working together in this important work of bringing the LEA to life and to implement it and activate it. All of us have been in these roles for only maybe a few years now, if not earlier, and to come on to a team that has a lot of passion and direction and drive and commitment, innovation and inspiration is really moving. And I think you'll see that in some of the work that you see up here with the LEA objectives that we're working to deliver on. So Joe's put together a few examples of some of the work that we're doing. The first one he referenced just before I started talking was this attendance protocol. And this document is in very early discussion, I would say, and it's a way of us being proactive about attendance issues or the attendance rates. It's inviting a deeper conversation where, you know, we all go to different workshops and we hear the statistics, we hear the data, we know attendance isn't great, but instead of thinking of, you know, maybe more commonly used incentives, we really want to get to the root or the heart of this. And the way that we do that is through building those relationships, like the relationships that Natasha's building, like the relationships that the Indigenous education team is building, like the relationships that I'm building with my colleagues at the Nation. And it's putting a lot of intention and thought behind perhaps the reasons behind absenteeism and what we can do to be proactive in that. So early discussion work, but something to do more work on in the future as we work to strengthen our LEA. The next one. Yeah, so we've been also in alignment with the LEA, and also we acknowledge territory every day. We acknowledge where we are, and so it's in alignment with where we are in really centering the expression of interest in any artwork or language or story that wants to be a part of the school story or the school welcoming or the school teaching. And so we're pretty fortunate to have the knowledge engagement specialist with us now in year 2 to do the work to liaise between principals, our teacher librarians, our in-ed, or whoever wants to do the work to show people who are walking into their building where we are, to communicate with the Nation and putting out expression of interests. And we've had a number of amazing murals and logos, and we have a Cedar House front coming out for our first Indigenous district grad on June 6th, and all done in a very thorough timeline that is unique and catered to here, not on our timeline. Our timeline is a little bit not in alignment with where we are. And we've been hearing nothing but good things back from it. And the next part is you.
Yeah, so this is one of our celebrations and successes this year. And Jeremy, I was thinking about this slide as we're speaking, and how are we meeting the needs and how are we serving our Indigenous students? And so this has been our Pathways and Possibilities Lunch and Learn series. And it came from the idea of, like, instead of your more traditional career fair, how can we get more student engagement? How can we make more, how can we allow students to make a deeper connection? Maybe seek out mentors in a specific industry or career. How can we get industry experts sharing their stories and inviting students to sort of walk along their path and see how they too might see themselves in that career. And so we've been using funding from Finesse Skills Links grant, and we've collaborated, KFN and the school district, the careers team, as well as the INED team, have collaborated on designing this series of lunch and learns where it's an intentionally thought out, again, series where it's smaller settings, Indigenous business leaders in the community, and having a chance to connect with students. And it's been wildly successful, I would say. We've all commented on how engaged the students are, what great questions they're asking. And we've even had some really great feedback from UBC's INED Teachers Program that we're so impressed with this format. This is the format they're adopting to use their engagement sessions from here on in. So we've had some, that's been a win for us this year for sure.
And the students leave feedback to you on sticky notes on the wall before they leave. And there's dry bread and there's fish.
Yeah.
And for the first time this summer, the knowledge engagement specialist went to HANA, which is traditional culture camp, language camp, connection to home territory. And with that visit, Jesse brought back a lot of inspiration on how we could do better here, but also didn't want to talk about the youth that went, because I don't know as much as you know about that youth trip.
Yeah, so this is the second year that KFN's been able to host a culture camp each summer. And we open it up to KFN youth, and youth is a pretty big window, which allows for many people to participate. And it can be a time for family connection as well as personal and, you know, professional growth in some cases. And what you're seeing is learners, youth walking away with a really strong sense of identity and language and culture. And they come back and they bring that into their community, and they bring that back into the start of their school year as well. Yeah.
Okay, I think this has been woven all the way through what we've been saying, and just really want to talk about the interconnectedness, that it is a little bit challenging to talk about things so separately when really there's a lot of things happening at the same time. And it's been a real privilege to learn and think in a way that is more in alignment here and where we are.
Yeah. This, I think, is a list that highlights all the different tables that we get to sit at together. And this is a chance for me to raise my hands to this Indigenous education leadership team and this district, because they have welcomed the work, and they've welcomed the collaboration, and they have welcomed the different voices at every single table that I've sat at with them. And it's really inspiring to see the hard work, the heart work that comes from this team. It's been a chance to learn so much through listening and through their grace and their patience. And so it's my turn to sort of raise their hands to them. And what you'll see is these tables are all different sizes. So we have some very small table discussions, like our weekly Friday coffee check-ins, where we're, you know, all working online and just, you know, catching up with each other from that week. Or like today, we had our quality foods meeting, right? Yes, good sandwiches. And that gives us an opportunity to really like workshop some things before we take it to formal discussions. We have we've started to weave in ways in which the school district has a chance to gain insight to community voice. And so our KFN committees, the cultural committee, the education committee, even our parent taught group that we run on Fridays, we're extending invitations for chances to sit and hear the community's voice when it comes to decision making. And then we have our LEA sessions, and those are definitely bigger discussions, important discussions, and we're including more KFN members in that process with us as well. So, yeah. Thank you.
That's it. That's everything.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Wondering if trustees have any questions? A lot of information. Thank you. Thank you all very much. All right. Going to turn to page 4 of our agenda.
I was just going to say, do you want me to move the motion?
That's right. That's where I'm.
Okay.
For the agenda, where the motion is. Go ahead, Christy.
Right, that the Board of Education of School District Number 71, Comox Valley, received the 2025 How Are We Doing report and local education agreement update as presented.
Shannon, thank you. All those in favor? Carrie, thank you. I want to share, I hate being that person, but I will share that it is 8:41. And we'll see how we do. All of the information that happened before now was absolutely important, and we will navigate the rest of the agenda together. On that note, Jeremy, the Enhanced Student Learning Report, Ministry response?
Yeah, I will just quickly go through that. We submit the Enhanced Student Learning Report. It's due at the end of September every year. Over the last 3 years, we've received feedback from the ministry Most years we get a multi-page document. I think maybe it's either our ESLR report is checking more boxes or they're short-staffed, but I wanted to just share the response from the ministry, which won't take too much of our 19 minutes. The slide is there. Maybe slide 2 there. Thanks. So this is what, it's a form letter, and this is the only unique writing that speaks to commitment to a continuous improvement approach, and with a critical feedback around focusing more on equity of outcomes for students with disabilities or diverse abilities. And so just in the interest of transparency, wanted to share that feedback from the ministry. And for those that are interested, I have the entirety of the letter here, but that's the unique component that pertains to the report that we submitted from Comox Valley Schools.
Read the motion that the Board of Education of School District Number 71, Comox Valley, receive the Enhanced Student Learning Report Ministry Response for 2024-2025 as presented.
Christy. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And we certainly have the opportunity to have our meeting last longer than the time remaining. We will just need to extend them. We will just need to extend the meeting, and likely will. Moving on to business services. We're going to receive or be provided with information regarding our Q3 financials, and I believe, is it our Director of Finance, Candice, you're going to be sharing with us tonight? Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. So the Q3 financial update begins on page 60 of tonight's agenda package. The report shows the actual revenues and expenditures as of March 31st in comparison to the amended annual budget that was approved back in January. As well, for this quarter, we've included the projected revenues and expenditures for the year, and we're showing a forecasted operating surplus position. Appendix A, that's on page 63, does provide some additional information to support the variances. As the estimated results will vary from the actual at the end of the year, it's important to be aware that the forecasted surplus does include some targeted fund surplus projections, as well as some other restrictions that were previously approved by the board. We will provide a Q4 financial update in June, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? I guess there aren't. Was there a trustee that would like to receive the motion, please?
Sure, I can do it. It's that the Board of Education of School District Number 71, Comox Valley, received the Q3 financials as presented.
Second. Shannon. And I guess I will ask a question. Is there, I appreciate the notes that come attached to the document. Was there anything that stood out for the finance team that was unanticipated or anticipated? Like, is there anything that you or the assistant secretary treasurer would like to highlight?
Definitely nothing unusual. There's always a certain degree of positions that remain unfilled throughout the year, dependent on leaves and other factors, so nothing surprising.
Those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Next, we have our major capital project status update. Director of Operations, Molly.
So it's pretty straightforward. I would say like the big news to highlight is that prefabrication at Aspen Park Elementary opened earlier in the month. So there's kiddos in that space. It is going to require a parking lot expansion and relocation of the garden. That work will happen spring and be done in time for the end of the school year. And then the other thing to highlight, I would say, would be the Jean Vanier Child Care Center. We're working through occupancy of that space now. The provider, because it is a replacement center, will be likely moving in and operating out of that facility. And then Cumberland is, trucking along, summer of 2027, but things are looking good. You'll actually see in the photos, you can see the structure, which is quite cool, and the footprint of the space. So it's coming together.
Any questions? Sorry, just passing notes.
Motion. The Board of Education of School District Number 71, Comox Valley, received the major capital projects update, April 2026 briefing note dated April 28th, 2026, as presented.
Thank you, and seconded by trustee. Thank you. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. We're all really excited to be able to see Aspen when we're on that. I just want to share that. I know that, don't want to interrupt our students when they're in school, but I think there's many that are excited to check out Aspen. 2026-27 budget update. Harold?
I'll be real quick.
Maybe not. Maybe we need to do what I was passing the note for.
Should we make a motion to extend the meeting up to 30 minutes? Does anyone want to? I'm making a motion.
Okay, thank you.
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. Got it. All those in favor? I just want to make sure that we get our public question.
Yeah, of course.
Timepiece in.
And just before you say anything, Harold, Molly, because I live like right across from the construction happening at Cumberland, everybody in the neighborhood, like, when I'm walking my dog or like talking about it, and some feedback that I would like to share is that anytime anybody in that community is asking questions about the build or speaking with anyone that has anything to do with it, through the people that are doing it to our staff, there's been I've heard probably close to a dozen positive feedback comments about that project. So it's loud and it's, there was a lot of stuff going on up there, but I think it's a super positive vibe. So just well done to the whole team.
That's great
for that.
Thank you.
Thanks for that, SJ. Quite often we don't hear enough positive comments about.
Yeah, it was really crazy. Even in the beginning stages, the architect was it's been pretty, the most positive thing I've ever seen for that kind of a project anyhow, so.
Yeah.
So do I have 40 minutes to talk about the budget? I'll make it quick. The process continues as we know, but we are getting near the finish line. I can sense the energy level as we go through, but it's important we finish strong. We've talked about a budget pressure, a non-discretionary budget pressure in the range of $2 to $3 million. Starting to narrow that down, so it is closer to the $3 million that we're coming up with a plan. So the budget working groups met 3 or 4 times over the last month or so to come up with a plan for the board to consider. So we'll be rolling that out in its entirety on May 12th, committee of the whole. So good seats are still available, so hopefully everybody will be there and able to participate in that. The plan will be kind of four major components, opportunities to look at increased revenues, decreased expenditures, the use of the Q3 forecast that Candace kind of walked us through tonight, and if need be, the use of contingency as well. So we'll come up with some menu items for the board to consider and a couple different options that we'll be able to present at that May 12th board meeting, or the committee of the whole meeting, I should say. Part of the process we've done is meeting with rights holders and then also with partner groups as well. So May 8th, I believe we've received an invite for the IEC meeting. So we'll be invited there and with great honor be able to present the plan and enter in dialogue with the IEC. Had the privilege of meeting with the subcommittee on budget, I think it was a week and a half ago or maybe a couple of weeks now. Positive meeting to continue that conversation, so we'll be able to do that. This week, Jeremy and I are starting to meet with the partner groups. Unfortunately, we had to cancel teachers and our QP staff today, or was it yesterday? I can't even remember the days now. It was today. So I think those are rescheduled for next week and meeting with both PVP and DPAC tomorrow to have the conversation. Again, we had the conversation at the beginning of the process to talk about priorities and ideas, and now we're coming back with the plan that we're going to present to the board and public on May 12th. Make sure that the partner groups hear if there's any proposed impacts on their groups that they hear directly from us, and to continue that dialogue. So that will be part of the process leading up to the conversation on May 12th. So again, high level, more details to come, but open to answer any questions that trustees may have.
Chelsea.
Sorry, did you mention as opposed to just partner groups at what point? And I know that one time we've chatted and talked about IEC and as rights holders and partner groups sort of in both ways, leaning towards co-governance and not. And I was just curious if you said when those meetings were happening, or if those were different.
Yeah, so the IEC meeting, we've received the invite for May 8th.
Sorry,
so
yeah, thank you.
So that's next Friday. A couple partner group meetings tomorrow with DPAC and PVP, and I believe we have teachers on the 6th. Sean, to confirm, I think we were able to confirm that date, and I think we're trying to schedule QP on May 5th. So we'll have all of those meetings prior to that May 12th. So again, making that commitment to follow up, continue dialogue, and have conversation, I think is important in this process.
So thank you. When you're talking about speaking to our stakeholders and partner groups, I'm curious if you'll also be having conversation with our students. We did have a conversation about having student voice included in some of our processes and decision making, and we did have a budget discussion with them at a previous student forum. And some of the impacts will have impact definitely our students, and they've got some asks on that. But I did not hear you mentioned, so I'm wondering if part of this conversation will be having a brief update and a conversation with our students at our next student meeting.
Yeah, that's May 6th.
6th, yeah. So we'll be able to make sure we get that student voice as part of the process as well. So bringing all that feedback and input from those groups to the board on May 12th for sure.
Thank you. Christy, did you have your hand up?
I was just, my colleague.
You didn't have your hand up, but
No.
she had her hand up.
Yeah, she, yeah, I was.
Shannon, over to you.
Sorry.
I feel a little bit confused about hearing, and maybe I'm just missing a piece, but hearing that we have budget pressures of 2 to 3 million, but then also a possible surplus that exceeds that. Does, like, I take it there's an overlap, and if there is a surplus, does that help us in addressing?
Trying to
that?
reconcile those two items it is sometimes difficult. So, part of the plan that we'll bring to the board is considering using that surplus. So what we've looked at and had started to determine is that the pressures we're seeing are structural in nature. They'll continue on. Or the annual surplus that Candace had reported on tonight was more one time. So trying to combine and reconcile those two is part of the puzzle that we're trying to solve and bring some recommendations to the board. So that money definitely can be used for that.
This year.
It will help us this year and potentially buy us some time to be able to take a look at providing a longer term recommended approach for the board to consider. Taking a look at that forecast that Candace and Jennifer put together, can we take a look and see, are there any structural savings in there? Are there structural surpluses in there to be able to do some reallocation? That takes time and a lot of conversation and a lot of feedback for some people. And that may be part of the plan that we bring back to the board, is asking for some of the time to be able to do that important work to try and better align our resources with what we're doing in support of the strat plan. So that's all that part and parcel.
I think it's going to be important to have that extra time just so that you guys can come back to us with some more detailed information.
Thank you for the update and thank you for the questions. Moving on to board business, we have no unfinished business and no new business that was added to the agenda, no correspondence. which takes us to the public question period to the board. And what we encourage is for our members of the public, if they have a question that they'd like to ask, that they share who they are, and if they're here representing one of our partner groups or our right holders, that they also indicate that, so we have a sense of, or archivally, we have a sense of who might be speaking, because generally the camera doesn't pan over this way, and so we find it helpful if you are comfortable to share who you are and who you're representing. So I will open the floor up to the public. You guys are all looking at each other. Just hand up first. No, you had your hand up first. Please go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm Catherine Crow. I'm DPAC representative for École Rob Road and also on the playground committee there. And my question's regarding page 28, one of the capital projects, which is a playground, inclusive playground at Rob Road. And I just wanted to start by sincerely thanking the school board, who have met with us on numerous occasions and really gone out of their way to Molly and Joe and Harold to help us as a parent group along in this process and understand how things are done and to help us to achieve our goal, which is to build an inclusive playground with rubberized surfacing that will allow kids with mobility aids to be a part of the play at our school. And my question is with regards to site preparation, which in the past has been something that the school board has made their contribution to the project. And I'm just hoping for some clarity. We were told early in the project that this was something that the school board would contribute to this project. And I'm just wanting to have some clarity on whether they're going to honor that commitment and help us to ensure that all the money that we have painstakingly raised will go as far as possible.
Thank you very much for the question. I'm going to look to the superintendent, who may be then looking for the secretary.
Yeah.
Which is how we navigate the process.
Yeah, I get all the good ones. Yeah, it's a conversation we've had over the last couple of days. I know Joe had brought it up to both Molly and I, so we've had that conversation. The three of us are kind of new to the process over the last couple of months and over the last, I guess, few years. Not exactly sure the commitments have been made in the past. I know our practice has been to, utilize the funding for example, the $200,000 that we would have would be parcel of the site prep and the acquisition of the equipment and implementation and so forth. But I think, in honest, as a sign of good faith, if that commitment was made, we will fulfill that commitment to get the site prep. So we'll remove the equipment, but I think the planning continues, and the conversation I think we've had around the design and the rubberized surface will still be the responsibility of the project money that's been established and raised and contributed by the board. But we'll make sure that the site is flat and the existing structure is removed to give it a good starting point. So we'll fulfill that commitment.
Thank you for your question. I saw a couple of half hands earlier. Go ahead, Sean.
Full hand now.
Sean Hahn from the Comox District Teachers Association. I have a few questions regarding the operating fund update. The first is the support staff line, the $907,931. I'm curious if you could, anyone could share how much of that is connected to the board office, or how much of that is schools, staffing in specific schools.
Is that the 907, is that note 6?
Note 6, yeah.
Okay, so on page 2. Yeah.
So I think Candace is going to try and maybe trying to address that.
Okay, great.
Sorry, just making sure I'm right. Yeah, so on page 62 for support staff, it does not actually relate to staff at the school board office. The vacancies generally are out at schools. I can give you some examples. There's an interpreter position that's been unfilled. There's a youth and family program worker. There's a couple EAs, couple ISWs. Sorry, those are in the EA section, not support staff. There's some custodial positions unfilled, as well as some admin assistants and a bit of library tech time. So it really just depends, and it fluctuates throughout the year. So even though at a certain point in time, we might have, say, a number, 5 positions unfilled, it was probably like 13 positions unfilled in December. And so it varies throughout the year, depending on the post and fill process. But generally, the variance that you see tonight is for support staff working out at schools and facilities.
Thank you. I'm wondering, for note number 1, if we know what portion of that is from NIDES enrollment, that $1.6 million.
We do. Let me just see here. So our estimates, these are for February 1701 counts. This is why we're seeing some increased revenue. And I'll just add as well that as of Friday, new tables were released and this number is actually changed already. But as of the date of this report and the $1.6 million that's being reported as extra, $1 million of that relates to online learning counts. And 310,000 actually relates to the inclusive education increased designations.
And just to follow up to that one, I'm wondering if the district has done any examination of the increased workload and any trying to balance or make any adjustment for that the NIDE staff would have to do with the increased enrollment.
Yes, there has been additional staffing given tonight, but I don't know, Associate Superintendent Dixon, if you're able to be specific at this time, or?
It's been an ongoing work with NIDES in terms of addressing some of their class size ratios. We have provided additional staffing to support the students as NIDES is kind of ongoing enrollment with students completing courses, hopefully just as quickly as other ones that are signing up. And it's quite a complex calculation. We have also reduced over this year, specifically in 10 to 12 online, some of the numbers and workload. I'm sure NIDES would welcome doing a presentation in the future around some of those complexities.
Just checking to see if there are any other questions. Okay, great.
This question came in through email, so I'm Megan Cutling, I'm the DPAC Vice Chair. Thank you for your continued work with our students. Thank you for the list of policy that will be prioritized. Could the board provide an update on the gender-based violence and sexual misconduct policy referenced on page 16, including current status, timelines, and how this work is being implemented at the school level? Thank you in advance.
Could you say it again? And I would like to encourage whomever's emailing, if they would have emailed us, then we could have had the question to not have to ask you to repeat it again. So if you wouldn't mind. Pardon me?
You can say that they did.
Sorry?
I can say they did.
Send it, but then they got a response that it would be answered after the meeting, and then so then they sent it.
Okay.
To DPAC.
Okay, great. That's good information. I didn't actually ask if we had any questions that had been provided, but if you could say it again, that would be great.
Sorry, I'm sorry if I'm going too fast. Thank you for your continued work with students. Thank you for the list of policy that will be prioritized. Could the board provide an update on gender-based violence and sexual misconduct policy referenced on page 16, including current status, timelines, and how this work is being implemented at the school level? Thank you in advance.
I think I'll start. The policy committee has brought, so the policy committee is working on the gender-based violence and sexual misconduct policy. I don't have a timeline. I don't believe the committee has set a timeline yet. The committee has just received support from the board to for the list that was provided. Were there any other sections to that related to policy, or was the rest of the question about what's happening in the district? Just want to make sure I got it.
That's like this, I mean, I'm reading it, so.
Yeah, I really appreciate the question. I just wish it was coming in the next board meeting, because the intention is to provide both a briefing note and a public presentation that provides a fulsome update on where we're at and what the next steps are at the school level. So just to defer that a few more weeks to provide a more fulsome update, but the intention is to do that in the May board meeting.
Thank you. I think they're an online viewer, so.
Well, stay tuned.
Great. Craig, are there any additional questions that were sent to the board meeting email address? Okay, thank you. And sorry for that.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's okay if I, like.
Well, for sure. If that, I appreciate that somebody found a way to get the question in the parent question period. But I was like, we've never done it like this before. So I was just checking. Yeah, thank you. Were there any other questions? Okay.
If I could.
Oh, yes, you're right. I
know-
apologize. You.
I'm not here to ask a question, but I just wanted to clarify that we had two questions that weren't answered fulsomely from a prior board meeting that I wanted to take a moment in the public to address tonight. So if I could do that, I think I have 21 minutes escaped from the budget conversation. So there was a question asked, and I'm going to paraphrase the question, but the question that was asked in a previous board meeting was regarding assistive technology. And again, the question is paraphrased. This is not maybe verbatim, but acknowledging that we are often down educational assistants, how do we ensure that students needing assistive technologies are taken care of when their primary educational assistant is away? How do we ensure that the remaining staff or educational assistant on call are able to support the students with assistive technology? So I just wanted to provide hopefully a more fulsome answer. So to answer this question, it depends on the specific assistive technology being used. When the tools are universal, all staff generally have a baseline familiarity and can provide immediate support. In addition, all educational assistants maintain a subfolder recommended by Inclusive Ed, which includes key school information, the EA schedule, and important support considerations for the students they work with. EAs on call are not typically assigned to intervene, or are typically assigned to students with complex needs that require specialized training in areas such as personal care, medical interventions, or specific assistive technologies. To ensure continuity for these students, schools are expected to have several internal educational assistants trained to support learners with complex needs, including those who rely on specialized communication systems. When an educational on-call is called to a school, the administrator organizes an internal staffing adjustment so that only appropriately trained staff are assigned to priority students who require specialized or technology-specific support. There was another outstanding question, and again, it was asked, and this is paraphrased, but the question was connected, I believe, to the Q3 report that had a line talking about Inclusive Ed's piloting of an AI agent that supports learning support teachers in the creation of competency-based individualized education plan learning goals. So the question, again paraphrased, sought assurances from the district that the AI tool would not be storing personally identifiable information of students, and that the district was utilizing a secure AI agent to do this work. When the question was answered in the meeting, we did address that we wanted to confirm assurances and report back. So this is why we're reporting back. So after district staff were given a walkthrough of the agent and how it would be used, there is no expectation that any personally identifiable information would be entered for the agent to process. Personally identifiable information is not at all necessary for the tool to be effective. Furthermore, there's thorough training plan in place for staff using the agent. And lastly, the data that is used is entered into Microsoft Copilot and stored within Canada, meeting our FIPA requirements. So there's no personal identifiable information used in draft using the AI agent. Thank you. Apologies that I missed one from a February meeting. That was from the last meeting.
And I will maybe circle back to the question, the policy question. The trustee election bylaw, we have to prioritize first before any of the other policy work, because it has to be done, I believe, early July because of the upcoming elections. And so whether or not, we'd like to put another one first, we can't. And so that one is urgent because there have been changes with the Local Government Elections Act and other pieces. And so we need to conform. And so that one does have a different priority lens amongst all of the other important policy work that we're doing. So I just wanted to share that. Most people probably would have suspected that when they saw it on the list, but I just wanted to share that. Okay, so now I've lost my agenda, but I believe we're at the end. And looking for a mover to move adjournment.
We'll move adjournment. I didn't read it. It's a motion to adjourn. That the Board of Education adjourn this meeting.
Sorry. I think everybody's seconding. But Sarah Jane, thank you very much. All those in favor?
Thank you.
Meeting's adjourned at 9:14.